Welcome back to Legacy Guardians. Today we're going to be working some black raspberries. We'll be sorting these, getting cleaned up, and making some black raspberry jam out of them. I hope you enjoy. So today we'll be making black raspberry jam. It's a popular in our family. I've been making it since my husband and I have been married. Every year he goes black raspberry picking. And black raspberries are different than blackberries, and they're different than red raspberries. They're a raspberry, but they're smaller and they're darker in color. And they're delicious. So I make a black raspberry jam, and when I make my black raspberry jam, I take the time to de-seed it, because black raspberries are very seedy. So I take the seeds out and so you can enjoy the flavor more. So tonight I'll be canning it in two different sizes. This is a 4-inch jelly jar and then an 8-inch jelly jar. I'm going to go ahead and do my 4-inch jelly jars along with a couple of these larger ones. Just because there's a lot of work in black raspberry jam, and you don't get as much as like if you say you're making strawberry jam or peach jam or any of those other ones. It's a smaller batch jam. It has to be due to how the berry is and that. And I've only found one black raspberry recipe that works. It can be tricky, but anyways, so I'll follow you through. I've already how I prepare the berries and then how I can it. So I'm gonna go ahead and take my 4-ounce jars and my 8-ounce jars, and I'm going to wash them and put them in my hot water bath canner so they can get nice and hot. You want to wash your jars. You want to wash your jars with hot soapy water. Make sure they're clean. Make sure you get all the soap out, and make sure there's no cracks or chips in them. You also want to make extremely sure that this rim right here has no chips in it. If there's a chip or crack, it won't seal correctly. So you want to do that, wash them up, get them in a hot water bath canner, and start getting them hot, because you're going to want to put your hot jam in hot jars. So we'll get that done and then move on to the next step. Alright, here is my hot water bath canner. So I got my clean jars in here. It looks like I got 2, 4. So I got 6 4-inch jars and 3 8-inch jars. So that should be enough for what we're doing. So I got them in the canner. I got them to fill it, and we'll cover this and let this get warmed up while we do the rest. Wait. Okay, so the next thing that we want to do is get our lids and rings ready for canning. You want to get these washed. Hot soapy water. Wash them up. Make sure they're clean. The types of lids you want to use. So tonight I got ball, and then I bought a new package of Golden Harvest jars, so they came with lids, and I've used these before and they work just fine. Now I have had trouble with some of the cheaper ones, so I won't be like what is it, can't remember what it's called now, but it was a cheaper canning jar and lid, and all those didn't seal very well. But I've had great success with so ball lids, Kerr lids, which is another older company. Golden Harvest I've had pretty good success with. There's also I think it's a newer company. It's called Pure, P-U-R. I've had great success with their lids. but you get to a certain point where they start, you know, getting cheaper. So like this lid, I think it's like called True Value or something. The lid's really thin and the seals are thinner, and they just, I don't know, I canned with 8 of them one night and I had 3 not seal, which is not a very good record for lids. Like you expect maybe to have 1, but to have 3 out of 8 wasn't very good, so I had to reseal those. So again, tonight I'm going to be doing a mix of Ball and the Golden Harvest because I bought some new jars, so I'll just be using those. And so you want to get your lids washed, you want to get your rings washed, you want to make sure there's no rust inside, that they're not dented, that they're not dented or squished, because these are what hold your lid on while they're cooling and sealing. So yeah, and those, you know, they can be cheap or expensive, it doesn't matter. But once they get really rusty, it can be problematic to try to get them off, and they might not seal very good, and you don't want to actually get rust in your food. So when they get really rusty, you just throw them away. And every time you buy new jars or you need new lids, you can get rings with the lids, so they're easy to replace. The other thing is too, you don't need like thousands of lids at once, or not the lids, but rings at once, because you take the rings off once it's sealed and cooled off and sealed. You don't store them with the lids on or the rings on, because it could create a false seal. So you always take them off so you can reuse them. So you only need X amount of however many. So anyways, we're going to go ahead and get those washed. The lids and the rings, make sure they're clean. Put them in a bowl with some hot water over top to keep them sanitary and ready for canning. And then when I'm done with that, we'll go ahead and start making the actual jam. Okay, so I got the hot water on my lids, so that's going to be set aside. And the next thing I'm going to do is we're going to go ahead and measure out the sugar that we need for our jam. And this recipe calls for 5 cups of sugar. So I'm just going to get a bowl. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So that's going to get set aside by the stove. Okay, so one thing that you're going to want to do, especially with Black Raspberry jam, is to make sure you get your pectin around. Pectin's great. It's all natural. It comes from fruit. It just really helps make sure it sets up. Yes, you can make fruit jam without pectin. I have not perfected that way. So we're going to be using, I'll be using tonight Sure Gel. I've used in other brands and they've all worked the same. Just make sure you read your instructions. It has instructions in it. Make sure you read it. Make sure you put it in when that recipe says to put it in. So you have dried pectin. There's also liquid pectin you can use, and you gotta put that in at a different time. I'm using the dried box, and so you know it has a recipe you can do. It also talks about the water bath time, so like you can check your altitude and make sure you get the right time for water bathing it. We're below 1,000 feet, so it'll be, with the jam, it'd be, yeah, so jams are 10 minutes, so I'll be doing mine for 10 minutes. So, pectin. Okay, so here is the black gold right here. So again, this is black raspberries that I blended up in a blender, and then I sorted out the seeds using a spatula and the strainer, and then and this is what you have left over. Okay, so you need, for this recipe that I'm following, you need 3 cups of black raspberries prepared, 5 cups of sugar, and 1/4 cup of lemon juice. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in our pot. lemon juice. Because this needs to be in before you start warming it up. Like so. Okay. Then you're going to turn this on medium high. Then you're just gonna get this stirring. Now the goal is you want to bring this to a boil. Once it starts boiling, you're going to add all your sugar at once, which is why we measured it out. So you can put your sugar in, and then you're going to bring it to a boil a second time. And once it comes to a boil where you can't start down, you're going to start your timer for 1 minute. You're going to cook it for 1 minute, and then take it off the stove, and then put it in your hot jars. So that is what we're going to do. Alright, so we're boiling. We're going to add the sugar in. We're going to stir this up till it comes back to a boil, and then we're going to start our timer for 1 minute. Now once the sugar's in, you don't want to stop stirring. You don't want to scorch that sugar. Okay, so now we're boiling. I can't stir it down, so we're going to start our timer for 1 minute. Alright, I'm going to turn the heat off and take this right off. Alright, so next we're going to take our jars out of the hot water bath. You want to put them on a towel. You want to put any hot glass on a towel, otherwise the cold counter could crack them or break them. Next, we're going to scoop out the foam out of the top of the jam. It's still edible. You can eat it. We use this for our toast in the morning, but it doesn't look the best in the top of your jelly jar. So you're going to go ahead and carefully ladle your hot jam into your jars. And you want to leave about 1/4 of an inch from the top. So do the top of the rim to the top of the jelly. You want to leave about 1/4 inch space. So fill up your jars. And then you're going to want to wipe off your jars of any splatter that you have. So make sure there's no jam or anything else on your top of your jar, especially around the rim. Then you go ahead and put on your lids and rings. When you tighten down your rings, you only want to do finger tight. Like you don't want to really ring down on them and do them too hard. Otherwise you could buckle your lid. And then you're going to put them into your hot water bath. And you want to make sure there's about 1 inch to 2 inches of water over the top of your jars. Cover it and bring it to a rolling boil. Once it's a rolling boil, then you start your time. Take the lid off. Let that settle down for a minute. Alright, when you're pulling your hot jars out of your canner after you process them, you don't worry about the water that's on top of them. It will evaporate. Like, don't try to tip it over or anything. Again, set them down on your towel and let them cool. And there you go. Black raspberry jam. We'll check it in the morning, make sure everything seals and set up okay. There you are. See you in the morning. Alright, so they've all sealed. It's the next morning, so they're all sealed. And it looks like they've all firmed up pretty nice. So there we go. So when you get ready to store them, you want to take the rings off and then make sure they're sealed. You're going to pick it up by the lid. And as you see, it stays right on. So It's sealed, ready to go into storage. So there it is. Now this is black raspberry jelly, liquid gold.